Hello and welcome to Soothing Pod's Sleep Stories. I am Chris, and tonight we will relax and unwind with a soothing retelling of Oscar Wilde's The Happy Prince. This is a touching tale of a golden statue and a small bird whose acts of kindness and compassion bring hope to those in need. Let this timeless story of love, sacrifice, and generosity gently guide you into a peaceful and restful sleep. Before we begin our tale, let's take time to relax and let go of the stresses of the day. Allow your body to sink into the surface beneath you. Here and now, there are no obligations, no to-do lists. By simply lying in bed with your eyes closed, you are already giving your body nourishing rest. Close your eyes and take a deep, gentle breath in. As you exhale, let go of any tension, any worries, and allow yourself to settle into this moment of stillness. With each breath, you are creating space within yourself. Space for peace, warmth, and love. Now, bring your awareness to your heart, the center of your being. Imagine a soft, golden light beginning to glow there. Warm and radiant. This light is love, unconditional, infinite, and calm. With every inhale, feel this light grow brighter. And with every exhale, allow it to spread, filling your chest with a gentle warmth. This light of love and kindness flows through you, softening your edges and releasing any tightness. Feel it expand, flowing into your shoulders, down your arms, and into your hands. These hands hold kindness. They have the power to comfort, to embrace, and to give. Let the light continue its journey, spreading down into your abdomen, your hips, and your legs. With every breath, this love reaches deeper, filling every muscle, every cell, every corner of your being, from the tips of your toes to the top of your head. You are glowing with love, with kindness, with peace. Now, imagine this light of love expanding even further. See it radiating out from your body like a warm, golden aura, touching everything around you. It stretches beyond your space, flowing outward to those you care about. Friends, family, even strangers. With every breath, you send this love out, knowing that kindness is a gift that ripples endlessly. Take a moment to feel the joy of giving and receiving love. You are both a source and a recipient of kindness. Allow yourself to feel deeply loved, exactly as you are, without conditions, without expectations. Breathe in this warmth, this connection. You are safe. You are whole. You are a vessel of love and kindness, and the world is brighter because of it. And now that you are relaxed and loved, we can begin our story. The city lay hushed beneath a blanket of twilight, the day's last light fading softly into a sky of lavender and indigo. As the sun dipped below the horizon, it left behind streaks of gold that melted gently into shadows. High above, the first stars blinked open, distant and delicate, like tiny lanterns guiding the night forward. In the streets below, the lamps were lit. Their gentle glow spilled pools of golden light onto cobblestones worn smooth with time. The flickering flames danced quietly behind glass, casting long, lazy shadows that stretched across the empty pathways. Here and there, the faint sounds of life murmured. An occasional creak of a cart being wheeled home. The soft murmur of a lullaby drifting from an open window, or the whisper of leaves stirred by a passing breeze. Beyond the streets, the river flowed serenely. It caught the glimmers of light from the city and scattered them like fragments of dreams across the water's smooth skin. The current moved lazily onward, untouched by hurry. The houses that lined the river stood silent, their windows glowing faintly like warm embers. Inside, families settled into their evening's rest, their rooms softened by candlelight, their homes peaceful and still. All around, the city seemed to sigh, settling into a deep and dreamless slumber as the night embraced it. High above the rooftops, where the air was cooler and the stars brighter, a single figure stood watching. The statue of the Happy Prince stood atop a tall column, rising above the city. In the dim light of evening, he shone faintly, his golden body catching the last whispers of sunlight. Every detail of him had been crafted with care. His face, in particular, wore a look of everlasting kindness. His eyes, two deep sapphires, glistened faintly, as though holding the reflection of the sky itself. And in the hilt of his sword sat a ruby, red and rich as a drop of captured fire. It was at this hour, as the world grew quiet, that a little swallow arrived. He came fluttering softly, his wings tired from his long journey. He had been flying for days, following the pool of warm lands far to the south. But now he needed rest. The swallow circled once, twice, before noticing the statue of the happy prince. What a lovely place to stop for just a moment, thought the swallow. I will rest here before I continue on to Egypt. He landed at the base of the statue. The stone was cool beneath him, but he didn't mind. As the swallow caught his breath, he looked out over the sleeping city. It was then that a drop of water fell on him, then another, and another. It's not supposed to rain tonight, he murmured, looking up into the clear, starry sky. But there were no clouds, no storms, only the statue of the happy prince. It was only when the swallow looked closer that he saw the tears. They glimmered like pearls as they traced paths down the prince's golden cheeks. Who are you? And why are you crying? Asked the swallow softly, his voice barely a whisper against the stillness of the night. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a voice filled the air, a voice unlike any the swallow had ever heard. It was soft and melodic, like the sound of a breeze moving gently through tall grass. I am the happy prince, said the voice, and yet I weep. The swallow tilted his head. But why? He asked again, bewildered. You are made of gold and stand so high above everything. Surely you have no reason to cry. The prince's voice deepened, its sorrow spreading softly like ripples across still water. When I was alive, I knew nothing of sadness. I lived in a palace where sorrow was not allowed to enter. My days were filled with joy, and my nights were full of music and laughter. The people called me the Happy Prince, and I believed them. For how could one not be happy, surrounded by such beauty? But now that I am here, high above the city, I can see all the suffering that was hidden from me. I watch the people below, so many hearts heavy with sorrow, so many lives burdened by want. Though my body is gilded and bright, my heart is lead, and it weeps for what I see. The swallow fluttered his wings faintly, unsure of what to say. He was a little bird, light and carefree, meant to follow the warmth of the sun and the pull of the winds. The sadness of the world was something he had always flown above, never stopping long enough to notice it. The prince's voice broke the stillness. "Little swallow," he said, "will you stay with me tonight? I have something I must ask of you, for I cannot do this thing myself." The swallow tilted his head, his feathers ruffling in the cool air. "I cannot stay here, Prince," he said gently, though his voice held a note of finality. "Winter is coming, and I must fly to Egypt. My friends are already waiting for me there." The prince thought for a moment, and then responded, "Will you not stay just one night and be my messenger?" The prince asked. "Far below, in a small house by the river, there lies a poor seamstress. She sits bent over her needlework by the dim light of a candle, stitching clothes for a rich woman to wear at a grand ball. Her hands are tired, her body weak, but she cannot rest, for her little boy lies sick in bed. Take the ruby from the hilt of my sword," the prince continued softly, "and give it to her. It will buy food and medicine, and her little boy will grow strong again." The swallow looked up, startled. "The ruby is no longer of use to me," the prince replied gently, "but to them it will mean everything." The swallow fluttered his wings, let out a small sigh, and nodded. "Very well, I will stay for tonight." The swallow fluttered upward to the prince's sword. Carefully, the swallow took the gem in his beak. It was heavier than he expected, and it shone so brightly that it cast tiny flickers of crimson light across the statue's golden surface. With the ruby secured, the swallow tilted his wings and took flight. He soared high above the city, the cool air rushing softly past him as the rooftops spread out like a dark patchwork below. The swallow found the seamstress's house with ease and glided quietly through an open window. He fluttered to a wooden beam above the seamstress's table, and with a careful tilt of his head, he let the ruby drop. It landed with the faintest tap on the seamstress's worn wooden table. The woman paused mid-stitch, her needle suspended in the air, as a strange glow caught her eye. Slowly, she lifted her head. Her eyes fell on the ruby. For a moment, she simply stared, as though she could not believe what she saw. Her face, so often lined with worry, softened into something gentler. Her lips trembled, as if to speak, but no words came. Instead, a small smile touched the corners of her mouth. She reached out slowly, her fingertips brushing the gem's smooth surface. For the first time in many nights, her heart felt lighter. The swallow watched from his perch, his small chest swelling with a flicker of warmth. Without a sound, the swallow turned and flew back into the night. The swallow returned to the prince, his wings heavy and his body trembling from the cold. He landed softly at the prince's feet and nestled close to the stone, trying to warm himself. "It is done," he said quietly. "The ruby is with the seamstress, and her boy will be well." "Thank you, little swallow," the prince replied. The swallow sighed deeply, his breath misting in the cool air. "Now I must leave, Prince," he said. "Winter is coming, and I must fly to Egypt where the sun is warm. My friends are waiting for me." But the prince had another favor to ask the little bird. "Please stay a little while longer. There is another who needs help. In the north of the city, in a small attic, there is a young writer. He sits alone by a tiny fire, his hands trembling with cold, for he cannot afford wood to keep warm. He dreams of finishing his great work, but hunger and the bitter chill keep him from his purpose. Take one of my sapphire eyes," the prince said gently. "It will buy food and firewood, and he will write again." The swallow agreed to stay a little longer and help the prince. The swallow flew up, carefully plucked the sapphire from the prince's eye, and turned toward the north of the city. After a short time, the swallow found the writer's attic. He slipped through a narrow gap where the window wasn't closed all the way. The playwright had fallen asleep at his table, his head resting on his crossed arms. His breath came slow and shallow, misting faintly in the icy air. Again the swallow landed on a beam and let the gem fall from his beak. It landed on the table beside the young man's hand with a soft, ringing tap. The playwright stirred, lifting his head slowly. His eyes fell on the gem. The blue light reflected softly in his tired eyes, and the lines of worry that had furrowed his brow seemed to ease. He picked up the sapphire, his fingers trembling, and cradled it gently, as though he feared it might vanish. The swallow watched silently from the shadows for a little longer. Then he turned and flew out of the attic, back into the night. When he returned to the prince, the swallow shivered, though he tried not to show it. "It is done," he said softly, settling at the prince's feet once more. "Thank you, little swallow," the prince whispered. "I know you are growing colder and are keen to continue on your flight to Egypt. But I have another task for you. Far below, in the city square, there is a little match girl. She wanders the streets with bare feet, her thin shoes long since worn away. Her matches have fallen in the snow, and she cannot sell a single one. If she does not find warmth, the cold will take her before morning. I would like you to give her my other sapphire." The swallow looked away, his heart aching at the prince's words. "But if I take your other eye, you'll be blind," he murmured. "It does not matter," said the prince softly. "Please, little swallow, take the sapphire to her. She must not suffer." For a moment, the swallow hesitated. The thought of Egypt with its golden sun and warm breezes tugged at him longingly. But he could not bear the thought of the little girl alone in the snow. "Very well," he said at last. "I will take the sapphire." The swallow flew up to the prince's face. Carefully, he plucked the second sapphire from its setting. Carrying the gem, the swallow turned and took flight once more. The little girl sat huddled against the wall, her head drooping forward, as though even holding it up was too great an effort. Snowflakes gathered in her hair and on her shoulders. Her small hands were curled in her lap, trembling as she dreamed of warmth that was not there. The swallow landed on a rooftop above her, watching. After a moment, he dropped the gem gently into the snow at her feet. It landed with the faintest sound, a tiny kiss against the soft white ground. the glow of the sapphire reflected against the snow, casting a gentle blue light that touched the girl's pale face. Slowly, she stirred, her head lifting just slightly as her eyes fluttered open. For a moment, she stared at the gem, unsure if she was still dreaming. Then she reached out slowly and picked up the precious stone. "Thank you," she murmured softly, although she had no idea to who she was saying thanks. The swallow took flight and returned to the statue of the prince. When he reached the statue once more, he landed gently at the prince's feet, curling himself close to the cold stone. "It is done," he whispered, his voice so faint it was almost carried away by the breeze. "Thank you, little swallow. You are faithful and kind," said the prince. The swallow tried to reply, but his eyes were growing heavy now, and his small body shivered with the chill that he could no longer escape. The night had grown colder, the snow falling more heavily now. "Little swallow," the prince said softly, "you have done so much for me, but there is one last thing I must ask of you." The swallow lifted his head weakly, his wings trembling. "What is it, Prince?" he asked. "The gold leaf that covers my body." The prince whispered, "Take it, piece by piece, and give it to the poor. It is all I have left, and though I can no longer see, I know there are many who need it more than I do." The swallow blinked, his little heart aching at the prince's words. "But you will be there," he said softly, glancing up at the golden figure above him. "It does not matter," replied the prince gently. "What I was does not concern me now. The gold will bring warmth and food to those who need it." Slowly, the swallow rose to his feet and fluttered upward. With delicate care, he began to strip the gold leaf from the statue. The flakes fell softly, glimmering faintly in the moonlight as they drifted to the ground like golden snow. The swallow worked tirelessly through the night, though each flight left him weaker than before. The cold seemed to press harder against his feathers, and his movements grew slower. But he did not stop. He worked tirelessly to carry the prince's gift to the city below. After hours of work, the task was complete. The once golden statue was now grey and dull. The swallow landed at the prince's feet once more. "It is done," he whispered softly. There is no gold left, Prince. Thank you, little swallow. The prince replied, his voice filled with quiet peace. You have been faithful and kind, and because of you, the people of this city will wake to warmth and hope. The swallow shivered, though he tried to smile. I am glad, he said faintly. I am so very tired now, but also very glad. Rest, little swallow, the prince said tenderly. You have a long flight ahead of you. Tomorrow, you continue your journey to Egypt. The swallow curled himself once more at the statue's feet. The cold stone against his body, somehow no longer as cruel as before. Snowflakes drifted down silently, settling like delicate lace on his feathers. The little bird turned his small head upward, looking at the prince with eyes filled with love. Dear prince, the swallow murmured softly, I will not leave you now. I'm staying here forever. Egypt is far away now, and my friends will not miss me. I'm happiest here, at your feet. You are my friend, my prince, and I cannot leave you. The snow continued to fall, covering the world in silence, and the swallow's small body grew still. His final breaths came like the faintest sighs, soft and quiet. Thank you, little swallow, the prince whispered. Thank you for staying with me, for giving me your warmth, your loyalty, and your love. The statue stood tall and silent. Although he was grey now, there was a light about him that the world could not see. It was not in the sapphires or the ruby, nor in the gilded beauty that had once adorned him, but in the love he had shared. Sleep well, little swallow, the prince whispered, his voice like the fading notes of a lullaby. Sleep in peace. The dawn arrived slowly, as though it wished not to disturb the stillness of the night. Soft hues of pink and gold spread gently across the rooftops, brushing the snow-covered city with warmth. The river shimmered faintly as it caught the first light, its surface rippling like liquid silk. One by one, the houses began to stir, the faint sounds of doors creaking open and windows being unlatched filled the crisp morning air. The townspeople stepped into the streets, their breath misting as they marveled at the beauty of the new day. It was then that someone looked up and saw the statue of the happy prince. Once golden and radiant, he now stood dull and grey. His body was bare. His sapphire eyes and ruby sword pommel were gone. At his feet, half hidden beneath the snow, lay the little swallow. The townspeople gathered, whispering amongst themselves. "How shabby he looks," said one. "Once he was so beautiful, but now he is no more than a ruin." "And look at this poor bird," said another. "Why did it not fly south like the others?" The mayor frowned and shook his head. "This statue is of no use anymore. It must be removed and melted down." The people turned away and moved on, thinking little of the prince or the swallow, for they could not see the beauty that had passed between them. That same day, the mayor ordered that the statue of the happy prince be taken down. Workers came with hammers and ropes. Their breath rose in white clouds as they toiled beneath the pale winter sun. They struck at the statue, and with each blow, the prince's leaden form shuddered. When at last the statue fell, they marveled that the heart within it, cast from solid lead, did not shatter. "It's strange," said one worker, holding it up to the light. "This heart will not break, though the rest of the statue crumbled easily." "Throw it away," the mayor said briskly. "It is of no value." And so the lead heart, along with the swallow's body, was tossed onto a heap of refuse outside the city gates. Snow began to fall again, covering the heart and the bird in a blanket of white. But something unseen happened that day. High above, in a place beyond the clouds, a voice rang out. "Bring me the two most precious things in the city," the voice said. An angel came, carrying the broken body of the swallow and the prince's lead heart. "You have chosen well," said the voice, and in that moment the swallow and the prince were lifted into eternal light. In this place there was no cold, no sorrow, no pain, only warmth and peace. The prince, his golden radiance restored, stood tall once more. The little swallow, his wings strong and bright, flitted joyfully beside him. Together they remained, their spirits forever entwined. They watched over a world that had not not understood their sacrifice, but had been changed by it all the same. And so, their story became one of quiet love and kindness. A reminder that true beauty is not in gold or jewels, but in the hearts that give selflessly to others. As the snow fell softly over the city below, their light endured, silent, unseen, but forever bright. I hope you enjoyed this story, and it has brought you a night of peaceful, restful sleep. Please join me again tomorrow night for another sleep story. Until then, sweet dreams.